She thought it was just a normal coffee break after a stressful day at work. Tired, frustrated, and feeling invisible, she quietly complained about her cold and distant CEO to her friend at a small cafe. She never imagined that every single word was being heard, because just behind her chair, the very man she was talking about had been standing there the whole time, and what he did next will leave you speechless. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello family, welcome to Tales by King. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The cafe on Maple Street was small but beautiful. It had warm yellow lights hanging from the ceiling and wooden tables that looked old but strong. Soft music played quietly in the background. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with sweet pastries filled the air. It was the kind of place where people came to breathe, think, and forget their problems for a short time. Outside, the city was busy. Cars moved quickly. People rushed past each other with phones in their hands. But inside the cafe, everything felt slower and calmer. At exactly 4:15 p.m., Clara stepped through the glass door. The small bell above the door made a soft sound as she entered. She looked different from the relaxed customers inside. Her shoulders were slightly bent forward. Her eyes looked tired. There were faint dark circles under them, showing that sleep had not been her friend recently. Clara was 27 years old. She was hardworking, polite, and very responsible. She had joined Brennan Group 2 years earlier with big dreams. When she received her job offer, she had cried with happiness. Working for one of the biggest companies in the city felt like a dream come true. But dreams sometimes feel different when you live inside them. She worked as a junior assistant in the operations department. Her job included preparing reports, organizing schedules, responding to emails, and fixing last-minute mistakes made by others. Most days, she arrived at the office before 8 a.m. and left after 7 p.m. Some nights, she even took work home. She rarely complained. But lately, the pressure had become too much. Earlier that same day, her manager had rejected a report she had spent 3 nights preparing. "Redo it," he had said shortly, without even looking at her properly. She had nodded quietly. Inside, she felt small. Now, standing in the cafe, she adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder. Her company ID card slightly showed from the side pocket. The name Brennan Group was printed clearly on it. She walked slowly to the counter. "1 cappuccino, please," she said softly. The barista smiled warmly. "Long day." Clara forced a small smile. "Very long." She paid, took the small receipt, and waited quietly while the coffee machine made a soft steaming sound. She stared at nothing in particular. Her mind was still inside the office building. The emails, the deadlines, the serious faces. When her name was called, she picked up her cup carefully and walked to a small corner table near the window. This was her favorite spot. From there, she could see the street outside. She liked watching strangers walk by. It reminded her that life was bigger than her office desk. She placed her bag on the chair beside her and wrapped both hands around the warm cup. The heat felt comforting against her cold fingers. She took a deep breath. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to relax. A few minutes later, the cafe door opened again. Maya walked in. Maya was Clara's closest friend. They had met during university and stayed connected even after graduation. Unlike Clara, Maya worked for a small marketing company where the atmosphere was more relaxed. Maya spotted Clara immediately and waved. Clara managed a small, tired smile. Maya sat down across from her. "You look exhausted," she said gently. Clara let out a long breath. "I feel exhausted." Maya leaned forward slightly. "Is work still that stressful?" Clara stared into her coffee for a few seconds before answering. "At first, I thought it was just the usual adjustment," she began slowly. "New company. High standards. Big expectations." She paused. "But it has been 2 years." She lifted her eyes to look at Maya. "And nothing feels lighter." Maya listened carefully. Clara continued, her voice still calm but heavy with emotion. "We are always chasing numbers, always chasing deadlines. If something goes wrong, the pressure falls on us immediately. There is no room for mistakes." She stirred her coffee gently. "And our CEO," she added quietly. Maya raised her eyebrows slightly. "Luca Brennan?" Clara nodded. "I know he built the company from almost nothing," she said quickly, as if she wanted to be fair. "I respect that. Everyone does." She swallowed softly. "But he is so distant, so serious. He walks through the office like we are not even there." Her fingers tightened slightly around the cup. "Last week, I stayed until 10 p.m. finishing a report. When he passed by my desk, he did not even look at me." Her voice lowered. "Not a smile. Not a thank you. Nothing." Maya sighed quietly. "Maybe he just doesn't notice." "That's the problem," Clara replied softly. "We work so hard, but it feels like we are invisible." At that same moment, the cafe door opened once more. A tall man stepped inside. He wore a simple white shirt with the sleeves slightly rolled up and dark trousers. He looked calm and confident, but not in a loud way. His movements were controlled and steady. It was Luca Brennan. He had just finished a meeting nearby and had decided to stop for coffee before returning to the office. He did not usually visit small cafes like this, but something about the quiet place caught his attention. He walked to the counter and placed his order. As he waited, his eyes moved around the cafe casually. That was when he noticed the company logo on Clara's ID card, slightly visible from her bag. He recognized it instantly. He stepped a little closer, not intentionally trying to listen, but close enough to hear his company's name mentioned. Clara, unaware of his presence, continued speaking. "I am not saying he is a bad person," she said honestly. "But leadership is not only about being strong. It is also about understanding people." Her voice carried both frustration and sadness. "Sometimes I wonder if he even knows how hard we try." Lucas stood still. The noise of the coffee machine filled the short silence. He was used to hearing praise during meetings. He was used to hearing numbers, profits, and achievements. But this was different. This was not performance talk. This was not a formal presentation. This was honest emotion. And he listened. Behind Clara, only a few steps away, the CEO of Brennan Group remained quiet. And the words spoken in that small corner of the cafe began to settle deeply in his mind. Luca did not interrupt immediately. He stood near the counter, holding the small receipt the barista had given him, but he was no longer thinking about his coffee. His attention was now fully on the conversation taking place, just a few steps in front of him. Clara, still unaware of his presence, continued speaking softly to Maya. "I wake up early every day," she said, her voice calm but heavy. "Sometimes I even check emails before leaving my bed. At the office, everything moves so fast. If one task is delayed, 5 more problems appear." She gave a small, tired laugh. "And the strange thing is, even after doing so much, you still feel like it is not enough." Maya watched her carefully. "Have you ever thought of changing jobs?" Clara shook her head slowly. "I cannot. My family depends on me. This job pays well, and the company is stable. Leaving is not easy. I just wish," she paused, searching for the right words. "I just wish the leadership felt more human." The cafe remained peaceful, but inside Luca's mind, something shifted. He had always believed that silence and discipline were signs of strong leadership. He thought that keeping distance from employees helped maintain professionalism and order. For years, this method had brought results, growth, and success. But now, for the first time, he was hearing how that same silence felt from the other side. He looked at Clara again. Her posture was not disrespectful. Her tone was not rude. It was honest, tired, sincere. She was not attacking him. She was expressing how she felt. At that exact moment, the barista called out, "Order for Luca." The name echoed gently through the cafe. Clara's hand froze. Maya's eyes widened slightly. But before either of them could fully react, a calm voice spoke from directly behind Clara's chair. "Maybe he does notice," the voice said gently. "But maybe he does not know how his silence is understood." The words were quiet, steady, and clear. Clara felt a sudden chill run through her body. Her fingers tightened around her cup. Slowly, very slowly, she turned her head. And the moment her eyes met his face, her breath stopped. Standing right behind her was Brennan, her CEO. For a few seconds, the world around her felt silent. The soft music, the sounds of cups, the light chatter in the cafe, everything faded in her mind. Her heart began to beat faster. Her eyes widened in shock. Maya covered her mouth slightly, unable to hide her surprise. Clara immediately stood up from her chair so quickly that it made a small scraping sound on the floor. Sir, she stammered, her voice shaking. I didn't know you were here. Her face turned pale with embarrassment. Her mind replayed every word she had just said. Every complaint. Every honest sentence. She felt exposed. I am so sorry, she said quickly, lowering her head. I was just talking casually. I did not mean any disrespect. I should not have spoken like that in public. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her cup. Luca looked at her calmly. His expression was not angry. It was thoughtful. I see, he replied in a quiet voice. He glanced at the empty chair across from her table. May I sit? He asked politely. Clara blinked in confusion. Sit here. Yes, he said simply. She quickly nodded and stepped slightly aside. Yes, sir. Of course. Luca pulled the chair gently and sat down across from her. His movements were calm and controlled, as always. He placed his coffee on the table, but did not drink it yet. Maya looked between them nervously, unsure whether to stay or leave. You can stay, Luca said kindly to Maya, noticing her discomfort. This is not an interrogation. His tone was soft, but his words carried quiet authority. Clara slowly sat back down, but her posture was stiff now. Her hands rested tightly on her lap. The atmosphere at the table had completely changed. Just moments ago, it was a place of casual conversation. Now it felt serious. I heard my company's name, Luca began calmly. So I paused. Then I heard my title. Clara's cheeks flushed red with embarrassment. I was not trying to insult you, sir, she said quickly. I respect you very much. Truly. I only felt overwhelmed today and needed to talk to my friend. Luca studied her expression carefully. There was no arrogance in her face. No mockery. Only honesty and fear. For many years, Luca said slowly, people only speak positively when I am in the room. Meetings are always polite. Reports are always formal. Feedback is always carefully prepared. He paused briefly. But what I heard just now was different. Clara looked up slightly, surprised. It was honest, he continued. Silence settled for a moment. Clara swallowed nervously. Honest, but inappropriate, sir. Luca shook his head gently. Honesty is not inappropriate, he said. Disrespect is. And what I heard was not disrespect. It was frustration. Those words made Clara blink in surprise. She had expected anger. Maybe even a warning. But not understanding. I work hard, sir, she said quietly, her voice softer now. All of us do. We just sometimes feel unseen. That is all. Luca leaned back slightly in his chair, listening closely. For example, Clara continued carefully, choosing her words with caution now. Last week I stayed late 3 nights to complete a report. When it was submitted, there was no feedback. Not even a simple acknowledgement. She looked down at her hands. When effort feels invisible, motivation slowly becomes weaker. Maya watched silently, amazed at the conversation unfolding in front of her. Instead of interrupting or defending himself, Luca remained quiet, thinking, observing, understanding. For a long time, he finally said, I believed that maintaining distance made leadership stronger. I thought emotional closeness would reduce discipline and focus. He folded his hands calmly on the table. But today, I am hearing how that distance feels to the people who work under me. Clara's eyes lifted slightly. There was something different in his tone now. Not pride, not authority, reflection. I do not speak much at the office, Luca continued. Not because I do not see effort, but because I assumed that results speak louder than words. He gave a small, thoughtful pause. Perhaps I was wrong to think silence would always be understood correctly. The tension at the table slowly softened. Clara's fear did not completely disappear, but her heart no longer felt frozen. "I never wanted to complain directly about you, sir," she said honestly. "I only wanted to release some stress. I did not expect this situation." A faint, almost invisible smile appeared on Luca's face. "Life often places us exactly where we do not expect to be," he replied. He finally lifted his coffee and took a small sip. Then he looked at her again, not as a distant CEO, but as a leader listening to an employee for the first time outside the office walls. And in that quiet cafe, a simple coffee break had turned into one of the most meaningful conversations Luca Brennan had experienced in years. For a few seconds, none of them spoke. Outside the window, cars passed by. The late afternoon sun reflected softly on the glass buildings across the street. Inside the cafe, cups clinked gently, and the soft music continued to play. But at that small corner table, something important was happening. Luca placed his cup down slowly. "Clara," he said calmly, saying her name for the first time. She blinked in surprise. She did not expect him to know her name. "Yes, sir? How long have you been feeling this way?" The question was simple, but it carried weight. Clara hesitated. She did not want to sound dramatic. She did not want to seem ungrateful. "A few months," she admitted quietly. "Maybe longer. I kept telling myself it was normal pressure. But sometimes the pressure feels heavy when there is no encouragement." Luca nodded slowly. He had spent years building Brennan Group. He had sacrificed sleep, time, and even personal relationships to make the company strong. In his mind, strength meant endurance. Silence meant focus. Distance meant professionalism. But he was now beginning to see something different. "When I started the company," he said softly, "I worked alone. There was no one to encourage me. No one to say good job. I believed that surviving without praise made me stronger." He paused. "So I built the company with the same mindset." Clara listened carefully. "But a company is not built by one person anymore," Luca continued. "It is built by hundreds of people. And each one of them is not a machine. They are human." Those words felt honest. Very honest. Clara felt her nervousness slowly disappear. "I never thought you were a bad leader," she said gently. "I just wished we felt seen." Luca looked at her directly. "Then let me begin now," he said quietly. The words were simple, but they were sincere. "Thank you for your hard work, Clara." Her heart skipped. It was such a small sentence, but it felt bigger than any bonus or promotion. Tears quickly filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. Luca stood up slowly from the table. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "I want you to come to the executive floor at 9 a.m. Clara's heart jumped again. "Am I in trouble?" A faint smile touched his face. "No," he replied calmly. "You are invited." Maya finally spoke, her voice still shocked. "Invited for what?" "For a conversation," Luca answered. "A real one." The next morning, Clara arrived at the Brennan Group building earlier than usual. Her heart was beating fast, but not from fear this time. It was from uncertainty. She took the elevator to the top floor, a place she had only seen from a distance before. The executive floor was quiet and elegant. Glass walls, clean desks, soft lighting. When she stepped into the conference room, she froze in surprise. It was not just Luca waiting there. Several department managers were seated around the table. Luca stood at the front of the room. When everyone settled, he began speaking. "Yesterday," he said calmly, "I had a conversation that changed my perspective." The managers looked curious. For years, we have focused on results, profits, deadlines, performance, and we have succeeded in those areas. He paused and looked around the room. But success without humanity creates distance. The room became silent. "I realized that leadership is not only about strength," he continued. "It is about understanding the people who carry the weight of that strength." He then turned slightly toward Clara. Clara shared something important with me yesterday. She spoke honestly about how our silence can feel like indifference. Clara felt every eye in the room gently shift toward her. Her cheeks warmed slightly, but she remained calm. I do not want a company where employees feel invisible, Luca said firmly. Starting today, we will change how we lead. The managers listened closely. Each department head will begin monthly feedback meetings, not about targets, but about well-being. Effort will be acknowledged. Hard work will be recognized. His voice was steady. And I will personally begin walking through departments, not to inspect, but to connect. The atmosphere in the room felt different. Not tense, not strict, but hopeful. Over the next few weeks, small changes began to appear at Brennan Group. Managers began asking simple questions. How are you doing? Do you need support? Good job on that report. At first, employees were surprised. Then they slowly began to relax. The office environment felt lighter. The same work continued. The same deadlines existed. But something important had changed. People felt seen. One evening, as Clara was organizing files at her desk, she noticed someone standing beside her. She looked up. It was Luca. He was not surrounded by assistants or managers. He stood alone. I reviewed your latest report, he said calmly. It was well prepared. Clear. Detailed. Excellent work. Clara felt a genuine smile spread across her face. Thank you, sir. He gave a small nod. And thank you, he added, for speaking when it was easier to stay silent. Clara understood what he meant. If she had kept her frustration inside, nothing would have changed. If he had reacted with anger, nothing would have improved. But honesty had met humility. And that created transformation. Weeks turned into months. The company continued to grow. Profits increased. But more importantly, morale improved. Employees began to stay not only because of salary, but because they felt valued. One late afternoon, Clara walked past the same cafe on Maple Street. She paused for a moment and looked through the window. She remembered the fear she felt that day. She remembered the shock. But she also remembered the turning point. Her phone buzzed gently. It was an email from Luca. Subject, appreciation. She opened it. Clara, your dedication and courage have made a difference beyond what you can see. Thank you for helping us build not only a successful company, but a better one. Luca. Clara smiled softly. That small coffee break had not ended her career. It had strengthened it. And Luca Brennan, once known as the distant and silent CEO, had become something greater. A leader who listened. Because sometimes, change does not begin in boardrooms. It begins in quiet cafes, with honest words, and a heart willing to hear them. And that was how a simple complaint became the beginning of something beautiful. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. It means a lot to me. Thanks for watching.